Hey everybody, welcome to Gunpla KT's workshop in the works number 2 for Gundam NT-1 high grade universal century. Now, I said like the first in the works video, I had this proposed plan. Now, with these measurements, I was definitely fucking wrong. Excuse my language. I managed to get some, actually, I would say, I managed to get some comparison shots with the RX-78 too, and that was pretty much the same height as the 18 meters, basically. 18.5 was the overall height for the NT-1, but that's probably including that Churaban armor, which I'm not going to use anymore. You see, the point is that if I can see it here, this is the armor that will be used. It's all in this one runner, and it's not going to be used in this project because the proportions that are fixed for this one, the legs and the front skirts in particular, and even the arms. If you see these arms have been cut, they probably won't even fit. Now, let's just get out my something for a second. Oh shit. A more current to up-to-date visual example I would use is the Revive RX-78. The reason I would bring this out is basically because it actually has the more correct proportionate feel to it. I have the original HDUC, and that was a bit head short. Comparing it to that, I mean, there's a big difference. And here's did you get the head height? It's almost close. Let me zoom in for a second, because I think that might be much more better if I actually zoom in for looking at this. If only this thing can focus. And about head heights, it's almost equal to the same. If I manage to turn to the sides, then this may not be a good example, but hey, at least you're getting a few of the ideas that I'm trying to get across. Now, I have a problem. This is probably one of the few minor complaints. Is probably the side skirt armor is so small compared to the front skirt. If I wanted to equalize that size, I might as well scratch build some new ones. I'm thinking about it, but I'm not really too sure. It'll probably take more than a few months to build if I buy more ply plate. And by my more ply plate, I got enough, but I don't even know about this size in particular. It's 0.25. I've 10 inches thick, under 0.25 millimeters to see there. And there's no centimeters and it's all made in USA, so it doesn't even use the metric system. Yeah, I think we use the metric system. Yeah, I use it. Now remember, everything I'm working with is centimeters and not in inches. So if you're confused with inches, much like I am, then I think it's better to use millimeters and convert it to centimeters. That way you can actually easily develop how much you need to put on. Other than that, for extensions, is basically the legs. One side I put in 15 sheets of that 25 millimeters plastic, and I put in like random two pieces of random sheets and reduced the number of 25 millimeter ply plates. The only difference I did was the first two were actually probably 1 millimeter, or actually I think that 75 millimeters, 0.75. I'm not too sure, because actually the one I used, were pretty old. Oh yeah, I fixed this front skirts. Now that they have this front part jointed together, it's all held together with ply plate. I was thinking of putting back skirt attachments, but I'm really skeptical about this. First time I tried doing it on first go, totally failed. I think I need to be more precise with making these things. Then again, there's always ways you can make another one, so just as long as you have the shape, you'll be alright. Yeah, I plan to scribe a few parts on the legs, basically, and that was attempted on the plans here, and see, it's going to be planned some scribing. After I clean up everything in that, I'll probably scribe away once I finish all the main modifications. Scribing probably go after priming, so that's about does it. Oh yeah, speaking of which, the heads also was modified a bit, if the camera can focus on that one too. There's a little few micro gaps in there. I don't think I had to fill them with no problem. I used white putty for most of this. That green stuff there is also my custom-made white putty from leftover styrene plastic, and that one's also used white putty from the same thing. The thick consistency, although it dries immediately quicker, and it's much more gooey. It's a gooey substance compared to normal putty. I actually used normal putty for just removing a few mistakes if I could. One problem I had with actually attempting to modify the arms. I still have this example. If I got the example at the back here, there's a bit of plow plate. It just seems fine and dandy, but then there's this small piece where he actually had to connect the manipulators, and that, yeah, that's so unequal. And I'm not really using a hobby saw. I'm using some sort of big ass saw, but the sharpness is good enough for plastic, so I was able to use that. Other than that, I really don't have much to say, other than this progress is really shortened. That's coming towards the near the end of the construction stage. Everything else was pretty untouched. The way I've built this kit is probably the most bizarre yet. I have not really done this with many kits. I left over so many parts on the runners just because I don't think it's necessary. Otherwise, I think it would be easier to work with, so you'd know, you're having a general idea of what you're gonna compress out of it. I mean, what am I saying? I'm probably just blasting out words. Shit. Like I'm trying to say is that you don't really need to use every single part just to modify every single thing. You just like have to get the general main core specifics. So with this build here, the core specifics are basically right in front of us. We only need this. As you see on the runners that the shoulder armor was taken off, but there was an idea that I was going to extend this or something like that, but I'm not entirely too sure. I mean, it will look fine with this, but looking at Studio Reckless pictures, I may think that they might take into consideration for changing the proportions. I am not entirely too sure about it, but there are some, there will be some changes on the way anyway. Of course, I also have to get a little hobby saw just for the blue parts. Seriously, I think I extended this too much. Actually, despite how I extended this too much, I think it won't be much of a problem if I get the proper tools to saw it. Now, when I said I didn't use an actual hobby saw, I mean like I use this I remember I mentioned earlier I used this big ass saw, and it leaves about a gap between each piece whenever time it saws off. Yeah, about there. So it's a pretty big gap, and you lose a lot of plastic from it. So that's why I used a lot of the ply plate just to make up for this mess. And somehow it works for the most part. Yeah, it does. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, you are saving back some details, but for the most part, it's the most insufficient thing. Like, you felt like that you should have got those detailed small things back up, or shouldn't get rid of those in general. I feel that there's not too much to work on. It's just a few extension things, like just adding ply plate. I don't think any sort of epoxy putty is required for this project. I'm not too sure if that's really mandatory for a kit like this. I mean, the epoxy putty is only used for sculpting round surfaces, and this is basically square. I'm thinking of other than that, my plan's getting a bit too vague, but I'm pretty much following the aspects and the aesthetics of the Studio Reckless versions, and that basically about does it. And I'll see what I can do afterwards, and I'll probably see you in the works video.